Hello and welcome to the Answer podcast. My name is Paweł Burza, and as always, I am joined by...
Hello everyone, my name is Sebastian Kalemba and I'm the game director of The Witcher 4, and today we're going to talk about world building and all of the nuances behind it. We're having Michał Janiszewski, who's environment art director, and also Jan Hermanowicz, who is an engineering production manager. So perfect. Right?
Yeah, this was an episode that was actually requested by people in the comments because everybody kind of wants to know how we built our worlds. And we have two different worlds because we have the Witcher world and we have the Cyberpunk world. So we'll be talking about both of these worlds and how to make them believable, real, grounded, and all that jazz. But enough from us. Let's jump into the episode.
Let's start.
All right, Janek, Michał, guys, welcome to the podcast. We're going to talk about environment art and environment overall and world building.
And world building, right? Because environment art is actually part of the world building. And this is a huge area, super complex, and would like to cover today a lot of things. But before,
it would be nice if you guys could introduce yourselves and tell us and me and the viewers, what are you doing here at CDPR?
Yeah, so I'm Michał Janiszewski. I'm environment art director, taking care of all the needs and picks to create the world themselves. So from the get-go, from the ground up, building them for you and for the other developers to get their hands on the world itself.
Yeah, and I'm Jan Hermanowicz. I'm engineering production manager at RED. So I do take care of engineering production, and I'm an area producer for world building.
That's awesome. So like two sides of one coin.
Well
That's great because full perspective, right?
Yeah.
We're having full perspective here, which is great. Okay.
Let's start with basics.
Let's lay foundation for the entire world building. Like what this is for you first. Like when you think world building, and let's look across the games, not only our games, we'll get into it, but across the games, world building, what it makes world building appealing, believable.
Sure. I can start, I think. So from my perspective, when we're thinking about world building, is everything that creates and adds together, is consistent, connects to each other, that creates the world that the player or we are getting immersed in, right? So this is how I think about the world building. Obviously, working here, being a area producer for this area, I cannot also not think about this through the perspective of organization, right? So world building for me is also let's say, how we are organized, and this is the place where we create all of the tools and all of the building blocks for our game worlds, pretty much, right? Both when it comes to technology, but also art and content, right?
Yeah.
So this is the way I would kind of describe what is world building for me, and how I'm thinking about this.
Yeah.
The world building itself, of course, Janek is creating the tools, but we need to create the worlds. And for me, the world building is from the first thing that you see while playing the game, you get immersed in the game. So everything clicks together. The environment, the characters, and the way that everything is laid out on the level itself. So from the visual, from the shape language, to the nitpicking that you have decorations on the table itself. Everything needs to be consistent. Each one of the type of the materials, each one of the type of the furniture, of the buildings needs to be coherent and working nicely together. We have multiple games like this. Like we had the Last of Us. We have our Witcher 3, Witcher 2, and Cyberpunk. We were really. It is important for us, for the player, to get the word believable as possible. We were figuring out back then and right now how even the production line look like inside of the factories when we are creating the factory. When the village is being set up in the world itself, it needs to have the consistency. Okay, what's the occupation of the villagers, of the NPCs? What are they? What they are gathering around the village, or that's a fisherman village. So everything needs to be consistent. So each one of the elements are directed. Each one of the elements are following, for example, the lore, because it is very important for us. We are first gathering all of the information from the books, from any kind of scripts that we can get, and we are working closely with the quests, with the narrative team, so to make believable world. So that's the thing for me. What I
so
see.
believable in the sense that things, when you look at them, they don't feel out of place, because sometimes if you think about a village, let's say it's a mining village, well, most likely you won't have silverware there, and you won't have clean houses, and you won't have nice carpets inside. Because if you have these things, you kind of look into it, and you walk into it, and you're like, what? And that breaks immersion, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it is something that you would see in real life, because it's totally out of place.
Yeah. You also you also said a pretty cool thing, which is like to create a world to make the protagonist feel that it belongs to this world, right? Like that. This is full loop, and that's really difficult, and it requires so many questions to be answered on that level, right? So, like jumping into the world of The Witcher or Cyberpunk, can we talk a little bit on what are the sort of the questions or pipelines you lay down to be able to execute them finally? What are sort of the questions that you start solving first? Like, how do you talk to the story? What are the answers that you're looking for in designing the world? I know that also you send your crew, let's say, for some scouting here and there, right? So tell us about the process.
Yes, I think let's go maybe with the creative questions first, the kind of, because that's how our process is laid out. So we start with the creative kind of, ideation phase, and only then we move to
Do you
how the
get
pipelines work with
briefed?
it.
What do you start from? Do you get a narrative description, and then based off of that, do you go, or do you come back, ask additional questions, and then start kind of shaping the view?
There's a huge amount of work that needs to be done, and huge amount of people that are involved in it. Like from the narrative perspective, of course, we are running through the books, running all of the descriptions that we can find, where in the world specific hub, specific location is being taking place, and following this one, we are gathering this information. We are setting up in the world, where in the world in the real world, where that kind of subject can be, where that kind of allocation could take place. And the second thing is the history. How far in the history we are is the same thing with the cyberpunk. We did it in the future, so we are following all of the elements that were how tables, how other elements will look in the future, and in the Witcher we are getting back to the time period of the medieval times, and in the specific area how the elements could look like. So this is one of the first things that we are doing, and the second thing is like exploring the world itself. You were speaking about the table mounts specifically. We did that kind of a session, and we sent the guys to scan the rocks. They are very specific rocks in the table mountains, and that was giving character to the village that we showed up inside of the last trailer that we showed. That
the
was
reveal trailer for The Witcher 4.
the reveal, the reveal trailer. So after gathering all of the information, we are sitting up with the level designers, with the narrative team, and with the quests, and laying out in the world itself where it is, and just figuring out what's the main cities, or how many villages we will have, how many different types of biomes we will have, so how diverse the world itself will be in the map itself. So we are laying out the silhouette of the world. It is funny, a funny story, because last bit when we were doing, we were sitting and we were speaking about, this village would be over here, this town will be over here. And during that time, one of the artists were just marking it in the Photoshop really, really fast. And at the end, I would say that was like 10 minutes until the end of the meeting, we had the whole map set it up. Of course, it was
Incredible.
like a 2D, and then we wanted to get a little bit more character to it. So we were, I was just sitting around together with the environment artists, and we are just, where in the world that should be, and what kind of a landscape character it will have. So all of the silhouettes, we need to follow up the narrative, and we need to follow up the word itself that we would like to sell. So it's from the ground up, we're building the character of the erosion types. We were building how many biomes, so different type of the environment. So here's a swampy, here we have a spruce forest, here we have something else to follow up to the word that will not be that boring to explore, because each one of the regions we would like to bring novelty to the player himself. So this is very, very important. And following this one is, I was speaking about that occupation of each one of the villages. It's very important because we are placing it near the river, because they were taking care of the fish.
But the way we are also doing, and what you kind of guys excel at, right, on the both LD level design, but also environment art, is that you kind of how I observe this process from the, let's say, maybe not being in it as a designer or artist, but like observing from the sideline, being in this area, is that I see a lot of layering, right? So you think about the landscape, the lay of the land, where is the, let's say, mountains, where is the rivers, where's the ocean, whatever, right?
Open vistas.
Yeah, exactly. Then you kind of layer on top. It's like, okay, what kind of biomes do we have? Like, where do we have forest? Where do we have like coastal biome, etc., right? And then you kind of lay on this like settlements, villages, cities, whatever, right? The main roads, how they connect, which village is like more remote because it doesn't have like the main roads connecting to it, etc. Like you build layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, right? Of this, and of course, out of each layer, we can pivot into like very specific creative, but also like technical process of how it is done. So, taking for example biomes, right? When you're thinking about biomes. There's like a lot of research, discovery, but also proof checking if like this particular like species of foliage is actually like belongs to this biome, right? So we don't do like some tundra forest and then we do the Mediterranean trees in it because it looks cool, right? It has to belong to one another. And I think like what I see also is that because of that, of course, like there's a lot of iteration, which is I guess it's obvious. It's inclined, but it's like this layering. I think brings even more, right? Because you're now on the layer when you're like placing the villages, right? And like you want to get the road here. Right? Oh no, we have to get back to the lie of the land because maybe you have to open or close something, so it's easier or more difficult to reach. And everything changes all the time.
Yes, it is. There's speaking about the laying out the roads. It is very important for us to have. Like each one of the hills is opening a new vista. We are creating the open world, so we need to have that kind of air perspective and to have to see where the player will go. So this is very important. After laying out everything in the world itself, we're having double check. Okay, this is the hill that we would like to ride on. So that's why maybe the composition doesn't work in this or this particular case. There were situations in The Witcher, in the Cyberpunk, that we were moving buildings, creating larger structures because it wasn't there yet. So that was like a first pass that we are doing is like a believable layout that you can find in the real life, and then we are adding that kind of a next step, like a CDPR step to it. To make it exaggerated a little bit more, but still in not 100% fantasy, but that kind of a vibe that is selling our products, like making it different from the other.
Yeah, but still rooted in reality, so it resembles things that you would normally see in real life, but with a twist, let's say.
With a little bit of twist.
But it must be difficult, right? Because you need to you need to understand not only the perspective of how to do this within a game, but you also need to understand the world and biology and how forestry works and all that jazz, and that must be difficult. Like, because you have to like pull from reality, or do you just go on a holiday, and instead of going on a holiday, you're like, I actually like this beach. I could probably use this for something, or is it not that way?
Multiple times, environment artists are like this, and we are just supporting them. Okay, we are going on the vacation, and there are multiple pictures. Look at this. I visit this area, and this is something different.
And where's family?
We can go.
The
family is always saying, he's working again.
We were on a conference once, and we had like the one day between like the conference days that we spent sightseeing the city, and I was like hanging with you and with Krzysiek, one of our Enviro artists. I was like, it was fun because we were like stopping every every 3 meters. It's like, okay, look at those rooftops there. It's like how the tiling is like. Let's make a reference, right?
That's
let's
a nice
take a picture,
pipe.
or like
That's
this
also-
stairs,
yeah,
this
yeah.
little stairs here, how it is done, right?
So each one of the regions are like a reference and inspiration for us.
Yeah.
And we have a huge team that is taking care of the believability because. Like you were saying, even the line of the trees we need to be specifically created. So we have some tools that they are supporting us, and we are building inside of our word building team tools that will make our work a little bit faster and a little bit more, I would say, easier to populate the whole world.
Yeah.
Actually, I love this perspective because you have multiple hats. Like when you and I'm really happy that we are meeting here because we have full perspective. We have this medieval, let's say. So you have this hat of like archaeologist, librarian,
Biologist.
like biologist, a researcher, historian
Flora,
and stuff.
fauna,
And then
everything.
on the other hand, you have, let's say, Night City. When you have to be a futurologist, even look at the Blade Runner, right? The guy who actually laid the foundation for the entire art for this, let's say, no future noir was Sid Mead. And we also study him for a long time because he's the guy when it comes to this genre. And, the way he was thinking about the future was always to design things in a way that it could potentially work as you see them. It's not just an artificial design. No. It's a new radio. Like, how do you imagine a new radio in a new setting? So there's this hat of futurologist kind of a guy who actually needs to think about design and elevating in the so like multiple hats, right?
And this thing like you're speaking, this believability. We are even checking how things are created, how the woodwork look like, how they are building the ships, how they are doing the carvings, because each one of the little needs and peaks we need to be visible in our assets and in our environments.
Yeah.
So this is very the stuff that we are just pushing in into each way that we can.
Yeah, it's like also very like kind of different setups bring different like pipeline challenges also because it's that came to my mind when you said about the woodworking, right? So it's like a different, let's say, lighting challenge to light something that is like the mega block is made of concrete and you have like the stick walls and you don't really worry about like what is happening outside versus if you have like the more medieval stylized sheets that are done from the, let's say, shed done from the like plaster or like wood, right? And like, you just have the planks that are like super thin, right? And they have some holes and it's like, oh my god, it's like we are getting all of the light from outside also inside, right?
The leaks.
And like it might seem crazy, but this is also the stuff that we are like dealing daily when it comes to the pipelines, right? Because you start with this artistic process, you go through all the steps, we know what we want to do, right? And now we have to make it somehow work, right? And we are facing a challenge after challenge after challenge to finally get there, right?
Yeah, we have a vision, and then we have to follow up with the technicalities of the vision, how we can create that. It's a back and forth, but nevertheless very, very interesting. And speaking about the light and the what is interesting, we went to a couple of places in the world that we scanned the day-night cycle.
Yeah.
So this is something that we will be implementing in our games. That is really great because in each region we have the time of the day is a little bit differently. We have the sun direction is different position, and how warm the light is. It is something that we are following too.
Yeah.
You can already feel it, for example, in already in our trailer that revealed Witcher 4, right? Like you can tell that it's up north somewhere, like we call this village Stromford, and the lighting conditions are like kind of connected to this place. Like it's very coherent, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Man, it's beautiful. And also, I wanted to ask you because, you're dealing with two separate IPs rooted in two separate parts of reality. On the one hand, we have, of course, like you said, it's still fantasy, but since it's rooted in reality, we have fantasy medieval, like futuristic, into the future, dystopian, megalopolis in Night City. And then you have this, like, how do you, like, manage all this in your head? Because it's like, it feels like two separate things. And it's like, okay, how do you find your footing in it?
Right now, I'm only focusing on The Witcher 4.
Yeah.
I was working in the Cyberpunk, and what is really interesting, when I was working on, I started in The Witcher 3. When I was working on The Witcher 3, I was looking at the Cyberpunk style, so basically Blade Runner. And then when I was working on the Cyberpunk, I was getting back my head into the medieval. So it's like basically contrast. And I loved both of the type of the cities that we are creating, and it's just basically inspiring for me. And how I managed to make it work and to switch, I don't know. It's just basically a creative part of it.
But I think the longer the after some time that you're being in the discussion, you actually kind of. You are in this process and you immerse in the world yourself, so you start like thinking about like a lot of stuff through the lens of the game we are doing and the world we are building at the moment, right? So then those references come in, and I think it's like the further we are down the line, right, the more organic and natural is to like that those elements connect, and we're like, oh no, it's like. Very early on, maybe we're more like, oh yeah, that belongs more to Cyberpunk than to the Witcher IP. I think at the moment we are now, it's like it's like getting super clear, kind of what belongs to the game we are making now, right? Just because we are further down the path, we spend more time iterating, more time looking at the references, more time looking at the concepts. We didn't talk about concepts also, which are a big part also of this entire journey, right? Yeah,
that's true. But I love this perspective of like being a peasant in the medieval world and dreaming about the future, and being a citizen and telling like in the past it was better.
Yeah, simple life.
Simple life. Yeah. This is what I'm looking for now. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of The Witcher, if you look at Witcher 3, and even when you look at the reveal trailer that we're talking about, because the piece of content that is already out there that we can actually like analyze, you see that even from the shots of Stromford that you're seeing, or from how Mione's dressed, or the flowers that are on her head and the wraith and things like that, you see that it's familiar, yet there is still space to kind of change things. I kind of noticed that for Witcher 4, the roofs of the huts in the village, they look different than what, for example, I would like compare to maybe Velen, let's say, but maybe not, but maybe something in Skellige, since it's mountains and cold. But how do you actually say, okay, with the next game, we're gonna have something which feels familiar to the player, but we're also gonna make it even more gritty, more grounded, and more kind of like fitting into the setting.
That's a funny thing with the rooftops, because we were getting back and forth when it comes to the size of it. But you mentioned this one. We need to have a different character. We don't want to reuse the stuff, and this is a different region in the world. So that's why we are looking for something new, something fresh. So we were just following, okay, how we can make it very characteristic. We started with a normally looking thatched roof, and we just figure out, okay, this is the world that we are creating, this is the region that we are creating, and it's up north. So then we need to have more thick, more heavy, more
to insulate and actually make it warm inside.
Exactly. And then we are working with the character team. Okay, they were designing the dresses, and they were designing the hats, and we were just following. Okay, how we can make it work together. And the hat of one of the characters that they created were really, really high. So I was like, okay, how will that work? And would that be coherent? And we were figuring out, okay, let's just try it. And we were sitting around with Lucian, the art director, and we were just scaling up. Let's make it a little bit higher. And then let's check it how it's going to work with the background spruce forest. And back and forth with this one, of course, following the metrics that the level designers were just laying out for us and with us. We were just okay. It will definitely work. And then we were figuring out how inside will look like. So where will be the chimney? If there will be even any kind of a chimney, where will be the fire, and how would that work within inside of the house itself?
But you touched also the topic of metrics, and I think that's also a fun part of this job is that you're on the one hand we want this to be like very artistic, very painterly. Right, but we also are making the game, right? So it has to work in a sense. So you would like to have this like very narrow, very painterly road, for example. But hey, then we are measuring. It's like okay, the cart, the wheeled cart would not fit in here.
Or the horse.
So again, we are again getting to this ground. It's like okay, no, we cannot have a road like that is connecting like two villages and that wouldn't fit a cart on it, right? So so indeed there's like a set of metrics created by the level designers which are incorporating like almost anything you can think of when it comes to the game, like how wide the entrances have to be, so the people or NPCs can like is it like the archway for two NPCs and they can pass each other, or is it like just for one? Okay, this is this metric, this is that. If the player is getting there, so this is the actual right metric. Also for the camera works, etc., etc. Right? So and of course it's I think it's like challenging from both sides, right? Because level design also want this to look very painterly and awesome. So where is this like balance point, between like between the looks and the function, I would say, of those, right? And then there's us engineering, which is like, oh guys, can you just make it like 3 times wider, because that would be so much easier to code around
with the line of sight.
Yeah, exactly. Like smaller with the line of sight, so right?
It's a always open conversation. Okay, we have a strict rules, but nevertheless we are always bending a little bit how we can make it work. So for example, you were speaking about the roads. We have one specific size of the road, the main road, but of course, to make it painterly, to make it more organic and natural, we are just adding. Okay, there could be, if there will be like a line of grass that will be going onto this road itself, or something else that we are figuring out. Okay, can we add some more rocks that you can just go around or jump through them? Yes, definitely.
But the context is also like super important, right? Because if this, for example, is a more cinematic location, right, where we like have more of a dialogue and cinematics, and for example, we know there won't be any combat, right? It's like a different approach to those metrics compared to the area where you actually know you will have
like an encounter, right?
Yeah, an encounter or some combat, or boss fights probably are even more kind of complex in this regard. So the context is everything, and I think like one of the I hope I will get like a stamp of approval from you, because you're always saying like the context is everything, Seba.
You said it, and I was very happy inside.
He instantly smiled. Content is everything.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think one of the very important parts of the job we are doing also across both like the art leadership, but also like production when it comes to the process, is how to make sure that this context flows both ways, right? So so like the guys that are making the quests, etc., are like always on top of the changes to the world and what we are building, and the same the other way around, right? So the story, the quests are affecting the world that is being built, right? And everything adds up there pretty much. Yeah.
Many times there was a request that we need to adjust or create something new for them, and that's basically we were just figuring out together with Seba to just figuring out how we make it into the game. There were some funny moments even in The Witcher 3 that we were moving the whole mountain to open the vista, because they wanted to add something to the vibe.
But also in HD, right? The moments where we're moving whole harbor, for example, like like
shifting. Yeah,
big
so.
changes, right?
Yeah, but this is also like the tiny, like it's a complex system. So like even tiny changes to it can introduce like unexpected results.
Yeah.
During the development of Phantom Liberty, we had this like the one iteration was like for the I think for the visual improvement, honestly, it was like the environment artist added some of the blockades to the cities, like some of the wreckages to the roads, right? It's like definitely will look better, right? But we started seeing like the traffic jams, right,
Yeah.
and congestion because like the AI of NPCs couldn't pass. And it's like okay, so revert that and figure out a bit adjusted way how to achieve this artistic kind of vision, right? But also not break the
And actually,
the
exactly.
flow.
And this is a very, very amazing story because even it is happening in reality. You have people that are like literally urban planning, and there is such a huge, enormous thought process behind, let's say, even placing sometimes a statue. Yeah. Right, and you see that from the perspective of even CCTV, that at some point, like this particular statue made the crowd gather around this area, and you actually help people to network, to see each other. So every single place, every single thing really matters from this point of view, even of connection, right? I really like it.
And there's like a ton of the good examples also. Like, I mean, that wasn't a bad example per se, but like the examples was like the very quick, obvious improvement, right? And we had like one of the locations, which was like more like we were looking at. It's like okay, it's like looks a bit like a tunnel, like you're you're enclosed from both sides. It's like okay, what to do? Do we change it? And I think you then, or like you and Lucian together, you came with this idea. So it's like okay, let's break a fence on the side. The fence is just broken, it broke, but it kind of opens up this view, this vista to the side, and you're like, oh my god, it's like such a tiny change, but like changes the composition completely, right? And immediately you feel like more air, more space, and you kind of can see what is going on in there. So, and I think this is my favorite kind of idea because it's like super cheap when it comes to producing that. You just do a bit different fence, and you earn a lot, right?
It's a lot of like a back and forth.
Yeah, exactly.
This one to have it first, like the foundation, laying out the foundation. You mentioned the urban planning. We are just figuring out how to when laying out the cities. Also, we are figuring out how to freely the player could traverse to the city itself, like where the roads are following from one part of the city to the other part that we can run freely. But we are adding some kind of little obstacles. I would say maybe not the obstacles, like opening the view every now and then. That I'm just introducing. Okay, here we can explore a little bit more. Here is a little bit like a chapel or something else that you can just have a little bit of a stop and just enjoy the environment. And opening and the framings is very important.
Exactly, like actually whole wielding, world building. That's a new word. I love it. Let's make it a short. But world building process I can compare to the solving a the Rubik's cube.
Yeah.
Because I sometimes on a review with you guys I have this feeling of Rubik's cube because constantly the camera, what you make with environment, like we are here, we are there, we are deleting this building, adding this, and it's like solving the Rubik's cube to finally have a perfect match of my player perspective, of metrics you've mentioned, of multiple things like vistas, right? Because we are creating open worlds, and it's like really solving it. And there's one more thing I would actually add on top of what you just said, guys, because we talked about constraints, we talked about identity of the location, vistas, all that. But there's one particular thing that I love the most, which is the environmental storytelling, because it's not only a function. It's not only that this particular hut, let's say, belongs to this world. Checked. But in the end of the day, what this particular building tells by itself, and then this is when magic happens, because you can really, analyze the hut, analyze whatever, like Chinatown, whatever, or Novigrad. You can tell there is some fantasy behind Novigrad after reading the books, and you're trying to capture the storytelling that the city brings to the plate. And how do you think about storytelling and environment?
There are a few layers to this one. One layer is just basically following the the narrative and the quest related stuff, or the ones that we have just like, I wouldn't say scripted, but basically we need to create like the cart was falling down the hill, and whenever you are going onto this road, you see that the first you see that the fence is broken. That something happened. Then you have some bushes that they are destroyed. Then you are following the trail itself, and then you have the cart, and then you are the environment artist is like, okay, the cart was hit the tree itself, and what was it carrying? Why? What happened? That was some kind of a monster or other kind of a animal that killed the person. Is there a body, or it was like how long it took in the history back? How long? How it lasted? And that was the time. And this is the one that was like following the quest. There are multiple of little nicks that we are adding as an environment artist in. For example, village or a house that you are entering a house and just selling the story. Okay, the water was spilled. Something happened over here. But this is not necessarily the following the quest, but we would like to sell from ourselves. Like somebody slipped, somebody like, fall down.
Yeah, like leaving the breadcrumbs, right?
Yes,
for the players to be able to like add those things together. It's like if you don't want to, you can miss those breadcrumbs. Like it will still perfectly work as just a, let's say, environment which you traverse, right? But if you want to follow out those breadcrumbs, like oftentimes you can figure out, like you can learn, okay, so this happened. You know, it's just like, where is the beginning of the trail? Yes. We also love adding Easter eggs sometimes, right?
Multiple of them.
here and there, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's like it's you're able, as you build, sometimes to hide something somewhere that is like really hard to discover, or like is a reference to something else, and sometimes it's like very, very kind of cautious and acceptance. And I think sometimes it's like it's like really down the process. It's like, oh, who plays this here actually?
And why?
Yeah, but it all needs to, like you said, it needs to make sense and it needs to fit and kind of complete the whole picture. Do you feel like, you know, since we do open world games, doesn't that make your job like super more difficult? Because if we're talking about games which are more linear, you're kind of limited. And I kind of have this example when I play older games. You have like, you walk through corridor, you get to a boss fight, you have an open arena, corridor, open arena, and then cinematic, let's say. And it's like a mix of all these things. Doesn't it just make, because you don't know where the player will go, you don't know where the player will look. So every place should make sense, but also should make sense in terms of architecture, in terms of like metrics and things like that. So it must be difficult.
Sebastian, you were speaking about the Rubik Cube. This definitely, because of the open world, if you have a city or if you have any kind of a location, you can enter the location from multiple sides. And you were speaking about moving this building here, or this even individual tree here. We are figuring out the camera views and the roads that will be potentially going into this place, and from each one of you we are figuring out the best composition possible, because it needs to be interesting. And of course multiple players are doing straight lines, so we are a little bit forcing every now and then, adding a little bit of a hill just to get the player, okay, this is the best look, this is the best vista, but it needs to look from each one of the direction really good.
But also still like you can spend all this time kind of designing for it, and players are brilliant actually, and they will find the ways to kind of go into the places like we never thought of, right? Still and find something that is like, you know, that like a different path, etc., right? So there's a lot of iteration also about this, like it's like trying to figure out all the possible paths and all the possible kind of places where you can get to, right?
What is interesting that multiple times, like really multiple times, we are creating the composition for a week, and I'm like, okay, this is the path that the player will be going, and then somebody on the review is just getting back and it's like, it looks much better from this side. Can we just rotate that? It's like, oh, but okay.
I know one game director who's like always turning around at the start of the review. It's like,
Let's see what's behind us.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
But,
It's always for the better.
But I think I think that also kind of connects well to the discussion or like the questions you guys asked about the pipelines earlier on, because I think the dominant thing we are talking about right now is like getting to the consistent connected world through iteration, right?
Yeah.
So when we are building the pipelines, it's like the one of the biggest challenges of the game industry pipelines in general, but I think for us also specifically is that they need to allow an easy iteration. And a lot of time when we're building a tool set or we are adjusting the pipeline, we're changing the pipeline, it's because we realize down the path that's like, okay, there's more iteration needed, right? So as we're discussing those layers, as you're, for example, laying out the initial lay of the landscape, it's like it's not easy. It's obviously not easy from the artistic side, but from the, let's say, toolset side, you generate the landmass and something you're happy with. Here you have cliffs, here you have mountains, like looks great, etc., etc. But then you start building layer on layer on layer on layer, and you realize, as you use the example, like this mountain should be like a little bit there. So how now do we, and you don't want, at this stage, oftentimes you don't want to regenerate the whole landscape, right? So how do you actually move it? It's not that simple, especially if you have like villages and roads on top and trees. It's like, so this is the very classic kind of pipeline issue, how to allow artists for really quick iteration, because the faster the iteration and the lower the cost of the iteration, right? And by cost I mean like, sure, like we can move this village, but we have to redo everything. That's a high cost, right, of the iteration, versus like we have let's say the structure of the world that allows us to literally, like as you said about the harbor in Night City, right? You can like grab it and move it, right? That's a magnitude different cost of this iteration. Yeah. And through this iteration, we're getting to the final result, right?
We had a wish list, the environment art wish list. What kind of styles the environment artist would like to have from the tool set? And we are going to the engineers and smiling, can we have this? Just we can make it work really, really nicely. And that is opening the artistic iterations, artistic vision, that the iteration is much, much faster. So that's why the whole tool set needs to be flexible, and we are just adjusting to it.
Yeah, and it's like
with the engineers.
It's a very sometimes difficult balancing act, right? Because when we are building those tools and those pipelines, there's also several layers where we're thinking about it, right? It's like I think like the cornerstone of these layers is the we want to really take care about the game performance, right? In the game we're building, right? So and allow for creation of this big open world, right? So those pipelines have to allow for those things, right? And then you want to have several pillars on it, right? On this foundation, you want to have a fast iteration, you want to have a easy and speed of use, but you also want to achieve the quality and the artistic, let's say style, right? So by balancing act, I mean it's like sometimes you cannot have all of this. It's like always you cannot have all of this. So it's about finding this point, because with the particular tool, we might, for example, spend much more time on the tool, and it will allow to produce result much faster. But the time we spend on the tool to get there would actually be the time you could redo it, for example, without this tool by hand 2 times, right? So the further down the production you are, the more difficult choices we have to make. And of course, I'm saying that because you said about the wish list, right?
Yes. And we have a list which is okay, we are creating basically a beautiful corner, we are checking how much decoration we can have, and then the engineers are coming in and just say, okay, this is a little bit too much. So we need to get that, okay, how much decoration we can have, where the decorations are important, and how to lay it out.
But we also,
and the density of the forest is always a back and forth with this.
Yeah, but as an engineer, we always want to kind of, as soon as possible, see what you mean by what would be the execution of your vision. So if you're saying we want to have the super packed, super dense area here, I think like good example might be the Black Market from Phantom Liberty, this one on the stadium, right? So it's like the vision was like, sprawl is like super dense, a lot of like market stands, etc., etc. It's like really packed. It's like, okay, so how fast can you like toss something together in engine, in game, so we can see the scale of the challenge, right? Because sometimes just like you can different people interpret the vision differently. It's our job also to align around this vision, but still there will be like you can interpret it as like impossible or like easy. And until you see it, really, you cannot say for 100% when you're landing with this, right? And how big of a challenge it is, really.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, you said a lot about, like, for me at least, the way you kind of explain all these things. It makes you in a center. That means that potentially every single department is your client. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you also said that you cannot have it all. And there's this kind of tragic in it. You know what I mean? And it's not about actually looking for compromise. I don't like this word. It's rather to like look for the satisfaction level to achieve particular player experience. But moving the mountain sometimes, like, the client here is, let's say Vista, the composition and stuff, exploration. And it's like a big client. But sometimes, there's like impact on the really small level. It's like you move this mountain and there's going to be lighting artist who is lighting up this particular scene in that very hot. And this mountain from right now is covering the window that he was actually preparing the rim light coming this very important rim light in that very moment, and there's no rim light again because there is this cover. And so it's really difficult to balance it, right?
And I think it's like the different also what you said is very interesting because the different challenges comes with different IPs, right? So Night City was lit by a billion of lights, right? Neons, etc., etc. So like we always want the lights to be grounded, kind of in the world, not like fake light from somewhere, from below. And it's just like to make players see better. It's like we want to make it grounded. Still, it allowed through iteration with the environment are allowed to like put in much more lights, right? The more like the Witcher IP, which is like medieval based, it's like the sun and the moon are the two biggest sources of light for us.
The main ones.
So like this entire Rubik cube now just got the fourth dimension kind of because it's exactly as you said, right? You cannot just like so we'll add a artificial neon or like the lights on the on the ceiling, right? It's like now we don't like it's a cave. And we don't have any skylights or here.
The bonfires, the candles, for example. Those are things that also give the place.
You cannot also then you're running into this fourth dimension, which is like immersion. What we said at the beginning is like you cannot have a empty cave which is non-inhabited, right? And that has 13 bonfires in it, just so it kind of works from the game perspective, right? So then we're back to the drawing board. It's like, so maybe
how we can make it work.
Maybe a bit bigger entrance, or maybe have a skylight in the ceiling, or something, like some breaking of the rocks, or fluorescent fauna or flora, or whatever. Like all those ideas are on the table, how to make it really work.
That's what I like also from what you mentioned, that it's early. It's like early in the project, it's very easy to do. The farther you get into the project, and then when there's like more people having input on lighting, for example, like you mentioned, the harder the job gets to actually move things, shift things. But sometimes you need to do it, and then it kind of breaks the whole thing, and you need to piece it back together.
The further you are down the line, exactly. It's like I will say this as an anecdote, like the producer's worst nightmare is when you come to the office in the morning, and then like Enviro artist. Like you grab like coffee with the Enviro artist, and Enviro says like, so we just moved slightly this building, and you're like, oh my god, I need to grab a build and see what exploded because of that, right?
Nothing changed.
But I love this.
Small changes.
I love this also. I've made a slight change. Really, it's already built. I've checked it like multiple times. For sure, it's safe. and then you have floating NPCs in the air. Like, you know, like,
You did well.
The small, we adjusted the village slightly. Yeah, so what did you do? We raised it by 8 meters. It's now on the cliff.
This is always a butterfly effect. It's always a butterfly effect.
They're just heads sticking out of the ground because the NPCs are...
But again,
exactly.
I don't think you're like humanly able to cover all of those cases always. And but also like denying the iteration and say like, oh no, like nothing can change because everything will explode if we change something. It's also not the way, right? So kind of like I know it's cliche what I would say, but like embracing this change a little bit and like looking like from the
It's always for the better.
Yeah, from the both tools side. So like, okay, you have to plan for the change, and you like have to look how the toolset supports making those changes, right? But also as then users using those tools, you have to kind of have some openness and some elasticity that the tools will not do everything for you.
Yeah.
And if we iterate, things will change, and we'll have to adjust other things because of that, right? And this is how it is, right?
Yeah.
It's just about defining the moment at which like the Rubik cube is almost there, but if you try to fit the last puzzle, you can like mess it up all again, right? So sometimes you have to stop right before you kind of it clicks, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Feels like a puzzle piece that would be crazy to solve, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like for me, at least.
But it's always also at the same time super exciting.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's it's like this feeling of solving the Rubik cube 2 seconds faster than before or whatever.
Yeah.
It clicks and it's like so good.
Yeah, but also needs to click for the player. And I feel like what's the coolest thing, and I noticed this with Cyberpunk, there were players that appreciated, for example, that, how we have street signs on when you have the... no, but also like the signs of the names of the streets and how, how the lighting is done and how the trash cans are placed, that they, that us as a, company rooted and based here in Europe, that we could translate the American, let's say, look of cities and implement it. But it's also not cities, but it's also places like Badlands, for example, which are totally, it's like one big desert and a long road. And then you have small little like, like a gas station, which looks like if you go somewhere in the States, you might find it like it's very like used, it's like tarnished and messed up and stuff like that. And then you have, other districts, which you can see like there's a lot of money poured in. You have these mega buildings everywhere and people are dressed like crazy, and like making these things real for the player. I feel like you appreciate it, that when you play a game, you see something that resonates with you and you're like, oh, I see what they did there. I actually live here. And for me, this makes sense. Phantom Liberty, like having this, the stacks, and also having the like favela-like buildings, one on top of the other, built like you would see in some places in Brazil. Like, I know that players from the community, they really appreciate that, because they're like, oh, they did their homework. This really fits the bill. Because I live here, and I really appreciate that they actually did that, instead of just like creating something random or Western looking, but without having it grounded in reality.
It's all about scouting, basically. So what we are doing is many times we are looking through the internet and through the locations, basically running onto the street and just checking, okay, this is how it works together. It's inside of the Cyberpunk and in The Witcher, we are figuring out how the stuff are built, created, and how to make it as believable as possible. Even the way that the trash can is being placed is very important.
Or for example, the storm drains. Like we would in Europe, we have storm drains kind of placed differently, but in the States, you have these holes in front of, like next to the curb, next to the curb, and people really appreciated these things, right? So I mean, it's the little details,
Yeah.
Of course, and it depends on the artist. During the Cyberpunk, we had multiple artists that they are from all over the world, and they have a specific vibe and specific flavor to each one of the districts. Basing, we had a pass on the art direction. We had the really strict rules when it comes to the the art Bible, which style we need to follow, and then we have that kind of a flavor of the artists themselves to give them the freedom that they could add something from on their own. Of course, all of the scouting, all of this was approved, but they were adding a flavor, a little bit of a different color, a little bit of a different silhouette every now and then.
And I think this is also one of the so I said about the night map, but I can still say about like the best thing is like when you come in the morning also to the work, you grab the build, you check some locations like, oh, this is looking so cool, and like you're praising them, it's like, oh yeah, it's looking so cool. Nobody kind of planned for this explicitly. It was just like, yeah, you know, you kind of the general vision or the general direction is this, and then it's up to the artist and the individual artist like coming up with the little pieces of composition that's like really kind of mind blowing. It's like, yeah, like it wasn't planned, not planned. Nobody came up with this idea earlier. Just as they kind of do the composition, those things are created, and they're like, oh wow, that wasn't there yesterday. It's like that looks amazing, right?
But it works, right?
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, it clicks. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Incredible.
Right.
Yeah. We're trying also to always bring like a lot of tools for you guys, so you can kind of like speed up your work and really make it like so that you have more time for the artistic iteration and creativity, right?
Yeah.
That's very important.
Because like if you don't have to lay the individual planks on the rooftop, you have some tooling that you can do this in the one swoop. You can experiment, as you said. I think it's like the nice kind of full circle, because we started with the roofs and we are ending with the roofs, right? So
it's all about roofs.
It's all really. Worldbuilding is all about roofs.
They're very important.
Thank you, Seba.
Batman.
So you know, it's about like multiplying your workforce kinda where it matters, so you really can focus at what gives and builds the world.
What's cool is basically we can, in the smaller scale, we can just test how the each one of the foliage types are working together, and then the technical artists are coming in and the engineers, okay, guys, how we can make this thing populated in the whole world, and this is not the easy part, but we're like, but we like this one. Please, can you help us scatter this one? So individual brushes, like how we can make it together. Yeah. And then the foliage artist is coming in. That will not work in this environment. Let's just switch it. Let's just snap it.
And it's gone.
Yeah, we could probably talk for another hour about the
easily
foliage and and the creation of biomes.
Yeah, I see that there is a direction you always kind of like add foliage, and in a couple of discussions that we had about things, it's like, yeah, foliage. Remember about foliage?
Yeah, the Witcher is like, I would say, sometimes 95% on the screen foliage for right now. So this is like a switch from the cyberpunk and the concrete status that was all over the place. So
yeah, but principles are the same.
Yes, it's the same.
That's what I still love about people when they post, just Geralt walking in The Witcher 3 through any field, and you have the sun, you have the birds, you have the grass and the wind moving the trees and everything. This is what people enjoy. Just like these, not moments when you're doing a certain quest or going to someone to get another quest. It's just traversing the land and having a land in which you really feel like you want to stop and you just want to listen and kind of take it all in. And I think we also enjoy that in real life when you go to like a scenic place. You just walk outside or you look outside and you see, for example, I don't know, an open ocean, and that already gives you this certain feeling in you. And it's really cool to have this in games instead of just being like, just walk through this corridor, go there, and done. Yeah. Guys, incredible.
Yeah, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I believe that, this is what... we've seen many comments. People have been asking about world building. So it was great
thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for having a chat about world building. Probably we'll get back to it at some point.
We'll have to for sure, because like we mentioned, there's so many things that kind of go into it. Like we could analyze and kind of go one by one and do a deep dive on them. But I think this is a good foundation.
Yeah, the time will come for it.
Talk about it more.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you had a blast, because we definitely had.
Yeah, it was an amazing episode. And I have to say, for me, in the beginning, I didn't know what to expect because world building for me is such a broad subject, but I feel like both of our guests really explained it to us in a way where I could even understand it. Yeah. So I was trying to ask these little questions to kind of guide me through it. But I feel like if you play games, you will kind of understand environments and how they translate. But as always, thank you for leaving your comments and thank you for interacting with us. And I actually have this cool comment from Maud Yusuf, who wrote, "Wow, this is really amazing. I feel that great content that is coming out, regularly, and also interaction with viewers and stuff like that really creates a community. So I'm really, really thankful that you appreciate this because this is what we want to do with the podcast. So I encourage everybody to leave.
This is all about.
They leave their comments. Tell us what you're thinking about the episodes. Tell us who you want to see on the next episode, and also what type of topic you would like to dive deep into." And there was really one comment that I saw under the episode that we did with Bjorn and Greg Rutkowski about AI and kind of talking about perfection. And this is by lucymorningstar.art. Is perfection possible even if it's AI? Even if it is, the loss of imperfection may be itself imperfection.
Oh wow, like
very philosophical.
And I don't believe in perfection because imperfection makes things perfect. I mean, it makes you believe, right? It's all about making things believable. So what does the perfection really mean?
It was really cool. So in the episode that Bjorn mentioned this, that if you're an AI and you're basing something off of something which was already created, and you're kind of taking these things and repeating the process, you're kind of creating something which is good. Pretty much you're eating the same thing and you're putting out the same thing.
You're kind of smoothing it out, and ultimately you make something that loses this real feel.
And nothing in the end is really 100% perfect because what you're sometimes taking in as inspiration has its own imperfections.
Exactly.
But also what the guys mentioned in that episode, which I really enjoyed, was the fact that sometimes the imperfections, they make the whole thing perfect.
Exactly.
And I feel that's super important. So as always, thank you for the comments. Leave more and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you in the next one.